Switching on the audio first. Doing things a little bit different this time. Hey everyone, thank you for joining. I'm excited to do another one of these lessons learned. It's a great opportunity for me to get in front of the camera and just talk about some of my experiences. There's a lot of things that actually came up emotionally when I was doing this presentation in particular, and I'll be digging into those, but I think this is a really cool topic and we'll enjoy it together. So as always, in the description there's a bunch of information, more things about Genesis, past videos, link to the Discord server, so all that's in there. First, I want to start off like I start all these presentations with talking about why I do these presentations. I think it's important for you to understand where I'm coming from and why I do what I do. So one of the big reasons is to practice presentation. I'm not someone who presents a lot. I'm not used to being in front of a lot of people giving instructions, but this role, this job has put me in a position where I do get to talk to a lot of great people and join in a lot of great conversations. So being comfortable, being in front of a camera, learning how to pace myself, these are all great skills to have, and it's something that's uncomfortable but necessary for my own personal growth. So I'm gonna commit to doing these every single week. Even if no one comes out to watch them, I'm still gonna be doing them. So thank you everyone who joins, because it does make it feel a lot nicer presenting in front of people and not just to myself. And the other is a commitment to connect with the community. As we grow, as we expand, and more stores join, more players join the community, I feel like I've been getting more and more disconnected with everyone who plays the game, and I want to give them an opportunity to connect with me and to join the conversation and be part of this. So I do these presentations every week to show that I will be here as a vital part of the system to connect with the community. And then the last thing is to put out content related to TCG and CCG creators. I actually got a message earlier today from someone who's not part of Genesis. He doesn't play the game, but he is another peer of mine who makes TCGs, and he agreed with me that there isn't enough content out there with diverse enough voices making different games. And though we may differ on opinions, the important part is that the conversations are being had. I think there's too much stigma out there about designing TCGs. A lot of people think that it's a doomed project, do not do it. And I don't think that's true. I think there is a lot of opportunity to do something really, really great in this space. You just need to commit to it. You got to be willing to go through the hurdles, the challenges, the ups and the downs. So I want to put my own spin on all those conversations. Before we jump into the content, as always, I want to give a huge shout out to our Patreon supporters. So thank you to Andrew, Gunther, Jacob, Steven, Will, and Good Time Games for being our top tier supporters. Everyone who's part of Patreon will be getting that promo Windslash, which looks amazing. And for this month, you'll be getting a promo con, which will be celebrating Lost Star hobby shop that opened up in Washington State. So you'll be able to celebrate the opening of that store with them through getting this Patreon promo. And also, I want to give a shout out to our Future Leaguers. Thank you to everyone who supports that process. If you are not part of Future League, make sure you join that. You can reach out to me or AG Miller on our Discord server, links below, and we'll get you access to all the Future League stuff. They meet every Friday evening, so that will be happening after this live stream. And you'll have an opportunity to start playtesting stuff, including the stuff that we had for our pitch contest. So I'm pretty sure Encased in Stone is in the Future League and is being tested right now. So join that Discord. And promos, there's some delays with the promos. They'll be coming out. Don't worry, we'll make sure that the promos for Future League are worth it. Alright, let's jump into today's topic. I hope you're excited. We're going to be talking about designing for beginners, and we'll be talking about the FOO strategy that exists in most games. The outline for the presentation, I want to be talking about knowing your players, having tunnel vision, why that's a bad thing for most designers. Okay, and then giveaways for new players to compete, the FOO strategy, and Simplistically-Complex. These Background music is a tick too loud. Okay, thank you for pointing that out. I really appreciate that. And sorry for the notification. My phone was too close to the monitor. Alright, so let's jump into knowing your players. Every TCG I've experienced always has the 3 core players, and we call them the 3 C's. There's a casual player, the competitive player, and the collector. A TCG, a collectible card game, would not exist if it wasn't for the collectors. So you have to think about them. You have to think about competitive players and casual players. But I think it's even more important, where the nuance comes in, is when you start breaking down these categories and having all the different types of players exist in all those different spaces. So, if, for example, casual players, if we think about Genesis, there's the creative ones, the ones who like doing completely random stuff. Their decks are not fully, they won't win the many matches, but they'll do silly things, interesting things. They'll take advantage of different aspects of the games. There's also the casual players who are just there for fun. Like, they're not there to win. They just play with the cards that they have, and they enjoy the game. Some of those people also are just there to just meet with their friends. They're not, the game itself is not the core reason they get together. The game is just something to do, but they are, so they play, they enjoy it, but the big reason is to meet with their friends, and that's perfectly fine. Another type of casual player, which I am, is the multiplayer. I love playing games where it's 2v2, 4-player free-for-all. I love those hectic 8-player free-for-alls. All those type of games become really enjoyable, and understanding how each player enjoys your game is very, very important when you're thinking about designing the game as a whole, right? Each player has a right to enjoy your game however they want to enjoy it. Actually, part of the reason I put Raha on the screen is to point out Stevo, who won our championship back in 2019. Our first championship, not our last, but our first championship. He played as Raha, champion he didn't play with very much up to that point. Came into the championship with his Raha deck, did really well, won first place, obviously. And he's someone who very much enjoys the competitive scene. If he's playing, he's going to play to win. He has a very strict, aggressive way that he plays. He takes advantages of cards with high value, low ease, like low execution strategy. But he's a very formidable player. Every player who comes into your game has their own wants and needs, and you need to know these things. The biggest advantage of doing this is that it allows you to put yourself in their shoes. It allows you to design for the things that they want. Without knowing your players, you can start making assumptions that lead you down really bad design decisions. And that's where tunnel vision usually comes in. Every designer eventually suffers from this. They assume that they know what is best for the players instead of asking the players themselves, without putting themselves in the player's shoes to figure out what the players really want. They also eventually get to a point where they start assuming that every player understands the game the way they do, and that every player understands the game the way other designers do. And this is something that really differentiates experienced designers from ones who are just learning. They have a hard time understanding that there's a lot of different categories of players, and then they start superimposing their own beliefs onto those players. This tunnel vision can lead you down particular design flaws for your game, which makes it hard for new players to jump in. So often a big thing that seasoned designers will get. So you start off as a new designer. You're designing for new players, right? Then you start getting into the game. You start understanding all the nuances. Then you are now an experienced designer. You're an experienced player. You start forgetting about the new players. And this can lead you down design rabbit holes, like creating every card has to be complex. Every card has to have synergy. There's hidden values behind everything. And this is very problematic for new players. We've seen games that have gotten to this point where eventually it feels like if you're a new player coming in, you're jumping in on like the final episode of season 7 of some random show. Nothing makes sense. And there's a lot of games that do this. So that's a very makes it very difficult as a barrier of entry for new players. There are times where doing these things matter, but you don't want to design your entire set to do that. You need to design certain cards in your set for new players. So, how do we do this? How do we give ways for new players to compete? So there's this great video. If you go on YouTube, look up extra credits, they create a video called Bounce for Skill. And this is a very, I found a lot of very useful tips from that when I was writing up this presentation. One thing that they talk about is when you're balancing elements in your game, don't just balance them against each other. You have to think of the other vector that exists. And that's the skill of the players, right? We've been talking about that for this entire presentation. Some things can require a lot of skill, and the value of power that that thing has is just mildly higher than another card that's close to it. So an example of that, I'm trying to think of a good example, but I think the one that comes off in my mind is Rampage Sauce versus Wrist Throw. A lot of people who play Rampage Sauce, they can see the value. Straight off the bat, you're dealing 2 damage, which is a great value add. Then if you get that to go off, you can toss someone. That gives you another value add. Being able to toss your opponent can then counter their attacks. So these are things that new players can pick up really quickly. When new players start, when that kind of realization moment comes, is when they start tossing their own stuff and realize, oh, you can save your own elements. This is really, really cool. And then where experienced players come in, they realize if we take Rampage Shots and compare it to Wrist Throw, there are moments where Wrist Throw is significantly better because of the fact that it's not dealing damage, and then it becomes a much more defensive card. And not every card in your deck has to be offensive. Another example of a card that requires a lot of skill to be good with the card, but it doesn't really give you a lot of value out, is Malicious Persuasion. Great card, super useful, but I only see really advanced players take advantage of this card. So a cool thing that they pointed out in this extra credit video is that there is not a linear relationship when you talk about balance and combining power versus skill. As skill increases, it does not mean that the power is increasing linearly with it. Sorry, it's just really warm in the room, and that's why I'm getting kind of like tight up. I got a new office space that I'm presenting in. I'm still trying to get used to how warm it is in here. So I kind of see it as the skill is a little bit more of a flat level, like between your strongest cards and your weakest cards. This not skill, the power should be relatively close. But the skill to go from using your weakest cards to your strongest, that one should be a little bit more steep. And that becomes a really good, enjoyable journey for players. As they get better, they can use better things, but they're not leaps and bounds better than someone who just started the game. So, in contrast to these really complex cards, I wanted to bring up Bolt Shot. It has a lot of damage output with very little skill required to make it just a good card. Every champion that can run it, it instantly improves their deck. There's no champion where Bolt Shot does not suit their playstyle. And these cards are great for new players because they'll instantly make a deck that's a little bit better. They'll start enjoying the game right away. The power level is proportionate to skill, right? Brand new player who's getting into the game, does not know a lot, can instantly start enjoying the value of Bolt Shot. Now, where this can topple for a game is where it gets pushed too far. And this is where we talk about the FOO strategy. So this is the definition I got from The Thoughtful Gamer. Great article. Go check out the website. I actually have references. Actually, let me know in the comments. Do you want a copy of these slide decks? Should I add them to the website? I can give you like a link to them. But I did give references for this article. But these FOO strategies are the lowest effort strategies that reap the greatest reward. They're what expert of games would consider beginner strategies. However, if a FOO strategy isn't, so FOO meaning first order operation, and so the first thing that the players gravitate towards, and it's instantly useful. So if we think about Genesis, one of the first strategies a lot of players bring in is usually an angel deck. It's a very, very simple deck to bring in. You already know you're getting a lot of value out of it. It gives the players a great place to start, especially when they're really, really new to the game. But a thing that a game needs to do as it grows is wean players off of these FOO strategies. They need to get away from using those first order operation strategies. And this is something where I'll admit we didn't do a great job at this. The Nubia Boltshot Angels, those 3 cards instantly give players an advantage. And this is something where it's how do I explain this? Like, those things, it's something that a new player can use and an advanced player, and they're not using them in drastically different ways. So it's one of those things that if we were to redesign, I think this is where we would have seen an opportunity to try to create cards where, yes, they're great for new players to jump in. Something like Primordial Force. Primordial Force should have been the iconic card that people start the game playing with and move away from as the game grows. But it wasn't. People started gravitating towards Boltshot Angels. They became very, very easy value adds, and they became the staples as the game kind of grew. So as I was writing this slide deck, I kind of realized that there's a contradictory problem that you need to address as a designer. You want high power cards to give new players a chance to win and enjoy the game very, very early on. But you can't make them so good that there's still an option for people to continue playing with as they become more experienced players. And one thing I kind of realized as I was writing this is, yes, we didn't do the ideal approach when it came to Boltshot and Angels and Nubia. But also, I want to put it out there for people who are watching this video and you're just designing your first TCG or you're just designing your first game. Don't expect to get this right on the first go. Don't think that you're going to be able to avoid all these mistakes in your first design iteration. Expect to have powerhouse mistakes. Every game has powerhouse mistakes. Magic has the iconic Power 9. Genesis will have cards that live down in history as some of the most powerful cards ever printed, and I feel like Boltshot's going to be one of those. But the value that a TCG has, and if you are specifically a TCG designer, one of the best values that you have is that you can start fixing things as you design new sets. Learn and grow with each set that you design. And this is where I want to get into seeing things that are simplistically complex. These are the cards that I love the most. They're an easy way to make powerful cards that are strong intro pieces, but are not forever pieces in the staple of the game. So look at Giant Scorpion, for example. Super simple card. So it's just a 3 attack, 4 health, has that T-shape awareness. It's super powerful as you just start playing the game. But when you go to meta play, it doesn't see a lot of it. And this is where a great introductory card could have came in. I know a lot of people who started off with their Idris Giant Scorpion deck. That's a very common starter deck. And that's a place where I'd like to see players start at. But it doesn't... It gets you some good early wins, but it's not going to be a place for the high competitive scene. So I love these kind of simple cards that have strong power. I think it really just comes down to the expression of keep it simple. Don't overcomplex everything you do. Don't try to push all your cards and all your ideas in so many different directions. The more simplistic you can keep your core fundamentals and make cards that do a good amount of damage for their value that you're paying for them, this is what's going to make new players feel more comfortable coming in. Alright, this is a bonus thing I was thinking about as I was writing this. So if I could do it again, if I could redesign it, and I think I already kind of addressed this, would I not print Boltshot and Angels? No, at the end of the day, I don't mind that Bullshot and Angels exist because it helps us as designers to try to get better. The game design team constantly has to think about, okay, how do we not make the same mistakes, but also mitigate the mistakes that are already out there? And I think that's a really important thing as designers, is how to live with our mistakes. With each set that we release, we have more opportunities to course correct. Bullshot will always be a good card. Angels will always be a good card. But I don't think that they're always going to dominate meta. And I don't think that we'll have to introduce power creep to try to course correct the game. And another great thing, and this is going to be kind of that, what do you call it? Not sponsored, but like shout out to people who do the Meta Monday information. That's been great. Having a community that helps analyze what are your strongest cards and what are your weakest cards. Because as a designer, you can't do that on your own. You need to have a lot of people with you. That's why testing teams are so valuable. You need more analytics around how your game performs. In the past, I've talked about this idea of good enough. And at the end of the day, I would rather have released the game as is with Angels, Bullshots, Nubia. I'm happy we released it that way than to have never released it at all and just spent more years testing the game, trying to perfect it. Because as we're learning more and more, we have less and less time to get to that perfection. So we have to find things that we can put into place so we can move faster and get those set releases out to you quicker. So one thing that is my personal mantra, and this is where every time I see Nubia, Angels, Bullshot, Chrono Walker, Giant Scorpion, a lot of those iconic cards, I think about this over and over again. Learn, pivot, and keep moving. This is my personal mantra. This is something that's helped me a lot with this company. And this is how it's okay to make mistakes. You just need to be able to move forward from them and not repeat them again. All right. I feel like this topic was not as thorough as I could have done. I'm working on trying to be a little bit more thorough in these presentations, practice them a few more times. It's just finding the time to do it. So I got the QAs if you have any. Sorry, I'm just reading through the chats. So, Sean, I think I kind of addressed this. Like, Bullshot is a good example of a card that does have a good value add for the damage it deals. A better example is a card like Rain of Arrows. Rain of Arrows is a much stronger intro card that I'd like to see new players enjoy and appreciate. However, Bullshot's out there, and we can't stop that. We can't turn back the clock. We can ban it, but that's something I wouldn't. I'm not a huge fan of doing, and you know that. So if it's out there, we got to just lean into it. And as the game grows, I know we're going to cycle cards out. At one point or another, some cards will not be standard playable. And when that happens, Bullshot will probably disappear. Not guaranteeing it, but I'm saying there's a decent chance. And if it does, then that helps fix some of these issues. If it doesn't, then, you know, we push forward, right? I'm glad you agree that Primordial would have been a better card for the new players. I do hope that... I think I always enjoy it when I see a new player play with Primordial, but then I always find that they feel so sad afterwards. Primordial, it wasn't balanced properly. So I think Lightless is a better example of a big creature that new players will enjoy playing with and still hold some competitive value. I think there's some decks on the Meta Monday list that do run Lightless, and that's great because they do help. So I think Lightless is a better example of a card that should stay around as that first introductory piece of a good competitive card. Do you ever redesign a card and then change the name? So like pick an angel, change the name, change the typing to make it a little bit more balanced. We have done that. So for example, Blink Shards got redesigned into Temporal Relocation. Chi got lowered, cost got lowered. A few other cards got redesigned over time. Blink Shard is the one that always stands out to me the most. Alex, if you're watching, try to add some comments of other cards that got reprinted in a better version. But that's the one that stands out. Oh, the Elementals, in a way, got reprinted. Instead of creating the 4 different Elemental summons, we ended up just creating a simple 5G and Jaylara called Jalayan Hounds. But this is part of the growing pains of just designing the game. We have to learn and grow and accept, like, take our mistakes in strides, right? There was one card that we banned. I don't think I would. Ideally, I don't want to ban another card again. There have been times where I've thought about it, but I've never pulled the trigger on it. I think that if we made a mistake for a game, unless it's super unhealthy for it to stay around in the game, I'd rather it stay and then use future sets to try to mitigate the challenges of that card. Now, if we can't get around to releasing cards fast enough to mitigate some of those challenges, then we have to pivot and we have to figure out a new strategy. Maybe we create a temporary ban where we ban this card until the next set comes out where new cards are out there to fix the issue that exists. But I don't like changing things too much. The Angel, though, there's no way of rescaling it. So there's a difference for cards that are above curve and bringing them down to the correct price, but bringing cards that were below and bringing them up, you can't create a card that does that because it'll just become obsolete in comparison to the card that it's replacing. So I think shaping it as a Boolean is a trap, though. The choice was not Bolt Shot or no Bolt Shot, or Angel or no Angel. Wearing your mistakes means also acknowledging all the paths you have gone to grow as a designer. Bolt Shot could have been action, aerial on Angels, could have been exert swift abilities. Yeah, so my point wasn't that it was yes or no on the Bolt Shot. It was the question of should we have spent more time in testing the game before launching it or not? And I say I'd rather have launched the game as is with the flaws in it so that we can learn in the future of how to do things differently. The one thing we learned, which would have fixed Bolt Shot, is we have a formula, a much stronger formula. The formula has iterated through every single set. So the formula we had going from alpha to beta is really, really different than the one we have going from Origins to Invasion. And each set, it gets a little bit stronger, a little bit more fine-tuned, and hopefully it gets to a point where it makes more sense. So Bolt Shot could have been very different. And the Angels, there's so many other ways we could have designed the Angels. The question more about should we have released the game or not? That's the thing that I don't agree with. I meet a lot of designers who spend a lot of time testing their game to death. And it's different for a TCG than a normal board game off the shelf, one and done type of game. And I talked about this last week in my presentation. With TCGs, we have an opportunity to learn, grow, fix our mistakes, change things. With other board games, you don't have those opportunities nearly as often. And that's where the challenge really comes in. So for those people who try to test their games to all ends, I applaud you for your patience, but it's not the best business decision. But when it comes to trying to release your products and make sure that they're tested enough, that's what we need to figure out how to do so that we can keep up with the demand. Because the one thing that I think, not all players, but I think a lot of players may not understand the balance between it, is that the amount of time to test something thoroughly, like to get from that last, to say 80% or 90% to that 100% mark, that time frame is 7 or 10 times longer than to go from 0 to 80%. And that time delay is what will cause sets to take, 2 years to launch or a year and a half to launch. We already get enough problems taking just 1 year to launch our sets. and we're trying to speed up that process. So as we speed up the process more and more, we're going to rely off the future leakers more to try to get a better sense of how the game will feel. Okay, from Colette, do you think eventually a combo will come out you weren't expecting and you'll have to ban a card? Yes, and that's the moment when we will use it properly. I don't want to ban cards because we designed it poorly. I want to ban a card because it significantly challenges the way we perceive the game. And we thought that that was going to happen with the Rain OTK. And we thought of a lot of different ways. Should we ban cards? Should we restrict cards? Should we errata cards? And then we realized, no, the best approach was to wait till Raise and release cards that mitigated the issue. And I think Origins will do even better of a job mitigating those issues. And then we realized also that the Rain OTK was something that was healthy for the game. We just didn't see that. And that's another thing about understanding your players. As I get to know the players who play the game a lot, I start to appreciate more and more their viewpoint on it and understand that just because that's not how I play the game doesn't mean it's not the right way to play the game. And the people who created the OTK decks, I really appreciate that they created it and showed us that the game has an opportunity to be played this way. And we started leaning into it more and more. So we'll ban a card when it's the right decision to make. And ideally, I do not want to ban cards that are rares or uncommons, and that just has to do with the collectability of the game. But that's a whole other issue and a whole other conversation. Alright, have you ever noticed that you create a standard type of card, or you're making a consistent style or choice about a card or a set of cards where everyone can look at them and be like, oh, you obviously made these? You mean like across the different designers? That's my assumption of this, is like if you look at all the different cards and you're trying to figure out which designer designed it. I think there's a sense of it. You might be able to get into our personalities a little bit more. I think an important thing that we do, and I really like that we do this, of course, because I'm the one who implemented this, was putting the designer's name onto the cards. Once you start putting the designer's names onto the cards, you get this opportunity for players to recognize who designs things a particular way, and then that might get you into your mindset. If you look at a card and you're like, you know, I like the cards that this designer usually makes, but this card doesn't make sense to me, it might give you an opportunity to think about it again. Think about it a second time. Because designers design a particular way, and that's why I love the team we have, because they have such diverse perspectives on how the game should be played. And bringing in Alex as part of that team, he brought a whole other perspective, which I really, really enjoy, and standardized a lot of things. So I think you'll notice that. I noticed it a lot, especially as we started working on the remastered set, second edition. And it gave us an opportunity to look at, you know, what were cards that were pushed forward. And right now, it's really cool seeing a lot of the cards I designed see play in meta. But I do really, really love it when I see some of the other designers make cards that are the center point of someone else's design. Like Gelda Baboon. That was something that I did not have a lot of confidence in. But now it's something that it sees a lot of gameplay. So I really love it when the other designers get to share that spotlight. And I want to push them more like that. Again. So from Shahan, no matter what, your first set is gonna have a Bolt Shot, Black Lotus, etc. Something will be above the curve. It is too difficult to tell. Don't blame you guys for that at all. Thank you, I appreciate that. Bolt Shot is a really, really good card, but I still think it's just at the upper echelon of what should exist in the game. It's not to the point where it breaks the game. It's just such a powerful card that it's hard to make other cards that are 7G and Bellum and have people say, yeah, I would run this over a Bolt Shot. But as the other playstyles become more pronounced, I think you'll find there are become more and more moments as the game grows that Bolt Shot sees less and less play. Not that it will ever become a bad card, but because, you know, you might be running a caster, and the caster, it doesn't make sense to run that Bolt Shot because there's another 7G that will give more value. Or you're a summoner, and same thing, right? As other affiliations start comboing up, you're going to see more and more combinations that come in for those type of things. I think another thing that we, as a player group, did not recognize and address when it came to cards like Bolt Shot and Angels is when Angel released, there were only 4 HEs. And if you were playing Vadhes, Nubia, or Raha, you only had one option. Then as JLR came out, you were given 2 more options. So you had Epiphany, Subjugation Strike, and Angel. And now it started becoming a little bit more diverse. When we get to a point when you have 20 different options at your HE slot, are Angels going to be seen as much play? I don't know. I'm not saying that they won't, but I have hopes that as the card pool grows and diversity grows across all those cards, we're going to see things change. And this is where the slow growth comes in. This is one of the biggest advantages for designing a TCG. If you're a game designer out there and you're thinking to design a TCG or an expandable game or anything with expansions, this is one of the things I love the most about designing in this space, is that we can be human. We can make mistakes. We can design something, but we can learn from it and see what we can design in the future that can make it a little bit easier. All right. Kudos that your Black Lotus isn't anywhere near as egregious. Thank you. I think one of the things that actually balances Genesis out is even if you take a card like Bolt Shot, Tsunami, Angel, Retribution, all those things, they're mitigated by one big factor, and that's Genesis. Genesis being a tactical collectible card game mitigates a lot of the things that could potentially make the game broken. And that gives a lot of leniency for us designers who did not, you know, go to school for design. I've been studying this stuff for so long, and that's why I'm a little bit more confident in my designs. But I know, like when Lionel first started, a lot of his initial ideas that he pitched, I'm like, no, those won't work. But the ones that he did get to move forward with, even if they were super, super powerful, the movement system, the tactical elements of them mitigated those cards. So even if we take something like Baruch, for example, super, super good card. Amazing card. You can play that card in such a poor way that you'll lose it. And then the next one you play in such a great way that you get like 3 attacks out of it. Each board state can take one of the greatest cards in the game and make it useless or make it amazing. And that's one of the things that makes the game so forgiving to design it. But where we will lose that element is if we start making the awarenesses less relevant. When we start making the tactical elements less relevant in the game, then we'll start losing a lot of those things that make the game very special. All right. I've been talking for long enough. Let's wrap this up. Upcoming events. Meta Mondays, every Mondays. Make sure you join Will. And I think Shahan's a huge advocate for that community. Thank you to everyone who makes that community amazing. I am always keeping my finger on the pulse, but I know I get more or less just reports from Alex and from Will. So I appreciate everyone who supports them. Go help support Meta Mondays. Exploring Libraries every Tuesday, 7 p.m. It's going to be interesting this week because I think for the first time, Alex and I won't be talking about the card pitch contest. So we'll have to find a new topic and we'll let you know what it is earlier that day. The game design talks, the one we're having right now, 6 p.m. Fridays. I promise I'll get better at these. It'll take a little bit of time. I will get better at these though. Future League testing will be happening in a little bit. I saw Alex already put a message in the Future League Discord channel. So if you're free tonight, go join that. You can just join the chat, listen to the games. You don't have to play yourself, but just being part of it is a huge, huge help. Upcoming events that are one-offs. Tomorrow is our Future League Tabletop Simulator Tournament. If you're part of Future League and you want to get yourself some of those promos, double up on some of those Future League promos, which you normally only get one of, this is the only way to do it. So come and join the Future League Tournament tomorrow. No entry fee. You just need to come participate in it and have Tabletop Simulator. So Akasha Codex, I think we already published one on the 17th. So the next one will be not next Monday, but the Monday after. So I think that's the 31st. That will be our first chapter into Raise. So we are jumping into the story arc of Raise. It's really, really cool. I'm looking forward to seeing how this entire thing unravels. Did you, tell me in the chat, did you read the Nubia storyline? Like the Nubia versus Kendra? It was super cool. The Cog Restrict artwork live was just so amazing. Go do that. Read that if you haven't yet. And then June 7th will be our Town Hall, 6 p.m. Come join, chat about whatever you want to chat about related to Genesis. I'll be there to answer questions. It's just for an opportunity for all the players to get together and talk. Card pitch contest. Submissions are closed. We've already gone through them. We've already announced who the winners, well, not winners, but who'll be moving into the elimination round. There's 5 entries per affiliation. You'll be seeing voting starting on Monday. I know it's a holiday, but come join us and do the votes anyways. Remember that Facebook and Reddit will narrow the voting from the top 5 down to the top 2. And Patreon is a place where you can actually help vote on who the winner will be. So make sure you are participating however you plan to participate. The card pitch contest is going to be amazing. Second edition, it's coming soon. More, we got some really exciting news. Things are going to be moving forward very, very soon. And hopefully soon we'll have it in a release date for you. And then next week's conversation, John Miller from the chat has been, was super curious about coming in and asking me a bunch of questions. So we're going to do kind of a live interview. So there won't be a slide deck as much. It'll just be him throwing questions at me, answering them. If this is something you're interested in doing, then feel free to join. Or if you want to speak to the community and kind of have a more me interviewing you type of approach, I would love to do that too. So if you want to come in as a guest speaker or as a guest interviewer, let me know and we'll set that up. Otherwise, thank you everyone who comes out. Here are the references to that article from the Thoughtful Gamer and for the YouTube video for extra credit. Make sure you go check them out. I will be putting the links to this slide onto our... I'll find a place to put them onto the website. For now, I think I'm going to be putting them into the blog article that announced today's topic. All right, that's everything for now. Thank you so much for joining me and enjoying the chat, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.